I got no Vivek today, but I'm bringing on a new co-host, comedian Seth Waters. How you doing, buddy?
I am fantastic in spite of everything.
I wanted to have you on for ages. This is exciting.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
How do people find you online? What are they?
My handle is Seth Thinks Thoughts, but I've been told that's cumbersome to say, so I might need to change it.
Yeah, I'm Andy Curtin, at Andy Curtin on everything. And also, we're releasing a Patreon this week. So if you check it out, patreon.com/hohopod. We've got tons of stuff on there, bonus episodes and stuff like that. It's going to be really good.
I'm pretty sure if I went to any website that was /hohopod, my school's internet server would block access to that page.
Yeah, with that attitude.
Oh, yeah, fair.
So I've put a bonus app up. It's me and Mohammed talking about the real backstory of all the crap that we had to deal at the Riff. Didn't really feel comfortable putting it out there for public consumption, but yeah, if you subscribe to the Patreon account, you can check that out. And so, guest on today, I'm very excited to have on Justin Sweeting. How you doing, buddy? It's very nice to have you here.
I'm good, thanks. I'm nervous to be in a room with two comedians. But
That's the story of my life. Story of my life. No, but we're bringing you on today because you are one of the great minds behind Clockenflap, Ticketflap, and general music scene building in the city. So, yeah, man, why don't we get to the beginning for you? You're born and bred Hong Kong?
I am, yep. Born and bred.
Both of them. And
University? Here too?
No. So,
okay.
Yeah, no. I
You fled for that.
I fled for university, but I lived at the Hong Kong University. My dad was a professor there, so I thought you were getting to some really deep stuff very early. You did your research.
Oh, no, I'm just clairvoyant.
So wait, did you live as a child at HKU?
I did. We lived on campus, which was an amazing place to grow up. It's right on the kind of the corner of
It's beautiful.
Conduit Road and Poshan Road, and there's a little road that goes down University Drive, and we were surrounded by hills and kind of this kind of college environment that is very different to the West, but it was a very safe place. We had free reign, and we had we had space, and we had very good times.
Do you find it like? Can you visually see how much it's changed since you were a kid? Like in your mind? Yeah. I mean, especially that area.
100%. I mean, I used to look out of our balcony and have an unrestricted view of the harbour from up, at the top of the
wow.
basically. That's not there anymore.
No, it's not. I'm in
It
one
is
of the
for some people.
I'm in one of the towers that's blocking your childhood dreams. So, thanks. The view's great.
It's funny. I saw this thing. It was talking about like how memory works. Like if you see something as a child and then you never see it again, or you go back to see it, 20, 30 years later, you have such a vivid ability to identify how it's changed. But if you see it all the time, the changes are just incrementally being layered on, and it's like most people cannot so easily recall how it's.
I had that
developed.
with a big parking structure in my hometown because I moved to Vietnam for 2 years, and when I went back for holidays, I just never ended up near that part of town. And one day I was driving there and I had to stop because I thought I was lost.
Yeah.
And there was massive, a 5-story car park.
But anywhere like that you like holidayed as a kid or something that you really got away from, it's like, whereas like you think about places that you're in all the time. I mean, I have little kids. People are like, oh, he's grown so much. I was like, has he? Looks the same as I remember him. What do you think has been like I know it's hard to summarize in a sentence, but like, what do you think Hong Kong's changed a lot in the last couple of decades? And what do you reckon are the big changes?
Hong Kong has changed massively in those decades, and changed on all sorts of fronts. I guess
it's a tough question. I know
it is a tough question,
but it's so interesting to think about.
So like, in the play, the space I occupy in terms of the music scene, let's say, when I was a kid, this was kind of one of the more arid landscapes to be a kind of music geek, which I was. Like at the time, you could get there was one newsagent that we knew of that sold The Enemy and The Melody Maker, which would be 6 months old, Yet we would go down there religiously to buy this thing, and all the news that would be old. We would used to go to all the kind of record and CD stores and have to literally mark down how many copies of particular albums we wanted, and they would specifically order those in for us. And it was in terms of live music, there just wasn't any. There was, the Fringe and the Wanch and places like that were around. They did,
and they've been around 1986, I think. The Wanch opened in.
Yeah, right. And, amazing institutions, but there wasn't much diversity of music. So there was a lot of kind of heavy rock and metal going around at that time, and there was these scenes weren't fully developed. And in the local scene, there was kind of maybe a more kind of electronic pop edge coming from an underground, but still there weren't enough pieces in that puzzle to really have anything develop.
Do you remember your first live show?
100%. So the first live show we went to, I was probably 16, and Wedding Present, this kind of post-punk band, this kind of cult post-punk band, for the most odd reason ever, played the Koshan Theatre in Kowloon. And so me and all my friends who were all similarly musically obsessed, we all piled down there together. And I remember so vividly this moment where, sometimes a roadie or one of the techs will come out and test the music gear before a show came, and the drum tech came out just before the show and just hit the bass drum. He just hit the bass drum and just made this boom. And all of us were at the front of the stage, and we felt this feeling reverberate through our bodies, which was like the most incredible thing we had experienced ever. Like we'd known music to that point by listening to headphones, listening to it on the stereo. We could not fathom that was how loud that sound was meant to be in real life. And so once we experienced that, we all looked at each other and were like, what the hell was that? It felt like an earthquake. And then when the band came on and started, and we liked the Wedding Present, but they weren't our favorite band or anything. But it just absolutely blew our minds. We could not understand that this is how live music, this thing we love music, but this is how it was meant to be experienced in all its visceral glory. Really made a proper impact on us, and it was something to this day I always remember. And I'm sure on some subconscious level I knew that I wanted more of this in some way, even if it was just going to gigs.
Sounds like that drum beat shook you pretty good. It's funny, like I think of the West kids are like, yeah, my first live concert was a Wiggles concert, and not me, but I'm just saying.
They're from Australia.
Yes. They were the highest paid band in Australia for like a decade or
Fruit
something.
salad. Yummy. It's a great song. Classic.
It gets played in my...
Actually, Wedding Present did a great cover of Fruit Salad in their 2001 studio album.
They sold out.
Do you know what you were taking me back to like going to concerts early on, because like we used to you'd go to like a civic center or like a town hall and see a local band.
Yep.
And I remember always on the way home when you finally get into bed, the ringing in your ears.
Yeah, but tinnitus. There's a bit of glorious tinnitus.
Yep.
You kind of miss.
Yeah, I remember. I'd totally forgotten about that. I'd be like, at some friend's house. I'm like, can you hear that ringing? So when did the scene really start to establish? And was it local or expats coming in doing music?
Oh, it's always, there's always been pockets of people doing things. So there were things developing on the local scene. There was things developing amongst expat bands. That's always happened. But there was nothing that pulled any of these things together in any kind of meaningful way. And I think one of the things that was kind of a catalyst for me was when I came back to Hong Kong after being away for university. Things were exactly the same as they were when I was a kid, and there wasn't much happening, and everyone was complaining about it. And
meanwhile, you've been seeing some music shows.
I've been seeing some music shows, but also I'd always kind of played in bands, and my route into the kind of music industry was the kind of failed musician route. So when I was in the UK, I went to I went to university in Bath, which is a very small city. And it's much like Hong Kong in many ways. It wasn't, we played in a band, and it's no big deal to be, a slightly more medium-shaped fish in that kind of pond.
That is the first time I think anyone has ever compared the medium-sized town of Bath, England to Hong Kong.
Yeah.
I see it now.
Yeah.
I see it. Dim sum everywhere.
Totally.
It's the neon. It all comes down to the neon.
Ironically, here no one can afford a bath. So
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, baths and ovens.
Yeah.
It's a
Oh my
mark
God.
of music.
People have an oven. Oh my God. I would marry anyone who had an oven in Hong Kong. That is a massive draw.
because Martin Haig's there now. I was
Yeah,
talking to him yesterday.
We've got a Magnetic Asia outclave in Bath. Martin Hayes there. Jay, one of our co-founders, is there.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, we're
He-
taking it from the West Country.
He's trying to get me to go visit. It
Yeah.
actually looks like a nice place. Looks like
It's an amazing place, but it's the music scene, much like it is here, was in more is small and in developing stages. So anyway, following university, we decided to take a year off and just do music. And
Who's we?
The band I was in
Which
UK
is
at the
called
time.
Blur.
Blur.
Yeah, just a little something.
And you
together.
played the...
Just a small band called the Rolling Stones.
Yeah. What did you play?
We were as in what instrument?
Instrument, yes.
I played the guitar.
Nice.
And so we were fortunate in that on an indie level, we got signed very quickly. We got a production deal. We got a label deal. We were touring nationally. All these things that, for me, as this kid from Hong Kong, it was kind of the dream. This was the dream. Even when we were playing, what they call the toilet circuit, these kind of small little venues all around the country. I love that. I properly loved every moment of it. And I kind of talked the label we were signed to giving me a job. So I was interested in the industry and I wanted to learn more. So I started working there and learning how the industry worked. And,
That's not the regular route for someone in a band that's been signed. Like, this is great. Could I get a job, the back end here somewhere?
maybe that was the Hong Kong kid in me. But yeah.
How do I explain this to my parents?
Yeah, exactly.
How can I get support for this?
I enjoy the term toilet circuit. I think I would say, and Andy would agree with me on this, that we proudly have a toilet circuit here in Hong Kong on
And
the comedy
nothing
scene.
else. The plumbing
That's
might
it.
be
That's
out.
it.
The plumbing
That's it.
might be out.
When the bar is so small that you can hear the flushing from the stage.
I in my world have dealt with a lot of music promoters, and a lot of them have done some pretty big stuff. And comedy is always a bit different, but comedy certainly, the toilet circuit's the best part. They're the best rooms. They're the great
100%.
live experience. No question
Yeah.
about it.
Intimate there, and that's where you have proper feedback, right?
And when I talk to these guys, like some of the older dudes who've done like there's one guy we work with who's Neil Thompson. He runs.
Neil Thompson.
You know Neil Thompson?
Yeah.
So he's done
He's
everything. He's done like Michael Jackson. He's done the biggest acts in the world. And you talk to him. He likes to talk about doing In Excess a million years ago in the smallest venues that they ever played. Like that was what he wants to chat about.
But yeah, those are the good. That's where the memories are made, right? But it was fully so. We did that year. I was working for the label, and then so the first year went really well, super fun. We decided to do another year, and by the end of that second year, I could feel that things had kind of plateaued. The shows weren't getting bigger, and everything I was learning at the label was teaching me or showing me that actually, if you weren't on this certain path, it was just nigh on impossible for us realistically to break through and make it in any meaningful way. So I didn't want to be a bitter 30-year-old bitching about this in the musician's pub. So I decided it was time to come back to Hong Kong and come home. And when I came back home, what was so eye-opening was that nothing had changed. It was exactly the same as when I left. And musically. And so rather than complain about that, I thought, well, actually, we can change this.
What year are we talking here?
So I came back in the early 2000s.
Okay, so post handover.
Post handover, yeah. I was post handover. So, but Hong Kong was still, there was a lot going on in the city, but culturally speaking, not much had changed at all. And I actually
One
thought,
cannot live on Cantonese opera alone.
No, that attitude.
That's fair. That's fair.
And so it was very, I actually saw it as a massive opportunity. I thought, well, all the things that, because at the same time I was pretty despondent about the state of the industry in the UK. I thought, well, this is, there's all these gatekeepers, there's all these structures, there's all these ways of doing things, and it just didn't feel, it didn't feel right. to me. And here, everything was open. There's this delicious gray area where there's no rules, and you can kind of just try stuff and do things, and if it works, great. If the city will give you a chance. And I just started connecting the dots and trying to fill in the little holes that we could see that were around. So we started doing shows, and very small shows in small venues, and slowly built them up. And then I met Mike and Jay, who we all had a really shared vision about what would be fun to do, and that was to kind of, there wasn't a festival in Hong Kong that was of the kind that we thought it needed, was the kind that we were missing, and the kind that we thought could really could just give people some fun and shared inspiration. And so we set about doing one.
And did you, at the time, was it a one-off, or what did you have in mind?
We didn't have
How big were your
expectations of doing it. No, tiny. One of the things that really bound us together was the fact of...
We're talking about Clockenflap. This became Clockenflap.
So this is Clockenflap. This was kind of 2008, I guess.
Good year.
And...
Was that when you turned 10?
No, I was... That was just sophomore year of high school.
Really?
Yeah.
God damn it.
I'm a baby.
Christ.
I'm a toddler.
Here you are sitting at this table pretending you're an equal.
I'm sorry. I'm so inferior.
You fucking child.
Oh look! Here, oh look! That toy where you. Oh look! The wooden blocks that you slide along the curvy track. I'll do this for 10 minutes.
So yeah, one of the things that really bound us together was like, let's just be completely sincere and authentic in terms of what we're trying to achieve. And we don't have big budgets, so let's just do the best small festival on low budget that we possibly can do, and just be happy with that. Let's just create the very best experience we can at the financial level that we are capable of doing, and not overshoot, not promise to do anything that we're not going to do. Just
You're like the
something.
opposite to every festival promoter ever.
100%.
Be happy where
So you weren't like, we're going to fly in tanks on helicopters and get
Oh,
every
yeah.
big band that's ever...
Yeah, my cousin knows how to fly a helicopter. He can do it.
Yeah. I'm sure Beyonce will be fine with this once we've marketed her.
Dude, we don't need Beyonce. We need bigger.
How did you feel like you had the network? Did the first year, did you get big bands? Like,
No, we got small bands. That was the whole thing. So we knew from the very start, okay, we looking down the road, we will not be able to compete on budget, and we will someday, if this goes well, somewhere down the line, someone is going to come in with a bigger budget. They'll be able to bring a band. So
Live Nation.
So the whole theory was let's create something that's not dependent on that lineup. Let's create this experience that we define as Clockenflap. And one of the reasons that word came about is we wanted something unique that wasn't tied to anything else, but would just describe what this thing was. And so for us, that thing was, let's just bring together all the things we love. Let's bring together music, art, at the time, film, food, people, family, all these things, silliness, and just find a like-minded community. Even if it's small, just find that like-minded community and give something for us all to just celebrate and take our shoes off on the grass for a while, just hang out.
Were there any festivals in particular that you had in mind as you sort of...
I think we take influences from all over the place, but there wasn't anything we wanted to replicate, because we knew that.
Sure, I just mean like Burning Man is obviously a unique idea that
You cannot get a permit for that in Hong Kong.
they have, like, mainland China has its own wannabe Burning Man.
Uh-huh.
I think it's called Dragon Burn or something. Have you heard about this?
Yeah,
And they burn a big dragon?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's a lot less drugs at that one, if I had to guess.
Yeah, no.
I haven't
A
been
lot more
to it yet.
selfies.
And so I guess we were also very super conscious at the beginning that we wanted to create something that was of and for this city. And so it was for sure going to take influences from everywhere we'd come across, but then try and meld that into something that made sense for here. And so it was proudly small to begin with, and not because we had any expectations of how it was going to grow, just that we thought that was the most realistic and actually sensible and sustainable ways of doing it at the beginning.
And how quickly did you get to the feeling that you'd bitten off more than you can chew?
Ah, well, yeah, we're always reaching still, and that's the fun part, for sure. Like that's what everyone involved in this has this natural inclination to want to push things as far as we can, but to the degree that pushes things in a wholly sincere and sustainable way. So we will never go out and make a promise to something that we don't think we can deliver, but we will comfortably go out and present something that makes us push ourselves, be that creatively or whatever, in a way that we think is going to result in a better experience for people coming to the event.
If you could, in like 5 points, describe the difference to me between the first Clockenflap and the last one that's happened, what would be like the 5 biggest things?
I was going to even ask the first one and the second one. Was there a big difference between the first and the second one?
We learned a ton in that first one, and so.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut his point off because it was a good question, but that's where I was going with it as well.
It's a great question, and okay, so the main thing about it is from the very beginning to now, the vision behind the festival hasn't changed one iota. It's exactly the same. The only thing that's changed is the scale.
We're still there to get women. That's it. Woo! It's exactly what sets up.
There was a high five. You might not have heard that on the podcast.
I'll edit it.
Okay, good.
So yeah, and what we learn over the time is how we can better equip ourselves to deal with that scale, because every time you grow in scale, there's different challenges involved. And when we first started this festival, one of the major challenges we had was there wasn't a culture of festivals. And so when you talk about festivals in Hong Kong, even still to this day, if we went downstairs now and polled 100 people, I'd wager 90 of those people
would have voted for Biden.
So they deserve a high five. but 90 of those people would, if you just said the word festival, the first thing that would conjure would be the Dragon Boat Festival or the Bun Festival,
sure,
or something that's not in the creative cultural space, but in a more, I don't know, in a more heritage space, or in a more a different kind of festival, and so changing that kind of consensus of what a cultural and creative arts festival can be takes time. Culture change takes time, and so we've been on this journey of that, which has taken time, and so we and that goes for everything in terms of public perception, but also in terms of how things are licensed, and how everything kind of comes back to that point, and as we do it more, people get used to it more. There's more awareness, but it's still something that we're actively trying to grow all the time because we need to.
Was there anything that really didn't work that you tried?
We're comedians, so failure is our favorite thing. That's all we do every week.
What really didn't work?
To grumpy rooms.
Well, let me try another tack to get you on the path, because I totally understand what you're saying about being basically, I think what you were saying was you don't promise things you can't deliver, but you promise things that you haven't delivered yet. Is that a fair statement?
Well, at the beginning, for sure. Yeah.
And I have gone through that process in promoting, and gotten to points where I was like, oh, there's a major thing that I didn't think of. When I booked Eddie Izzard in Shanghai, and we put 2 comedians to do ticketing for 750 people that had to pick up tickets on the door, and they didn't even order the tickets, and it was a fucking train wreck. It was and the show nearly got shut down with Eddie there because the cops we had a curfew, and 750 people very angry. And these when you get to work with these roadies, they just fix anything. And this dude, the venue manager, just walked out, and he just went, spoke to the security guy, grabbed one person in the line and went, follow him, and snaked 750 people through to security and just walked the entire room in, sat it, locked the doors, and we started it in 10 minutes. Do you have but you know what I'm talking about, where you're I can do this, and then you get there and you're like, oh, this.
So what happened when you booked Eddie Izzard?
Yeah. Oh, dude, he's booked bigger acts than that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was the second year. I think I got injured in the second year.
So we've not had the train wreck experience yet, but also thankfully, because now it's not all left to we've got far smarter people in our team than,
and you get experienced people in
Yeah.
the crew, right?
and it's amazing. You know, our executive producer Matt, people like Mike, they're very process oriented, and they we go far above and beyond what even the kind of local I guess conditions are for doing an event, just because we feel we want the event to be at an international standard. But I'm trying to think of something funny.
It doesn't have to be funny. I mean, it's just those I'm more interested in those moments where you try and tackle a big thing, and you know, it's nice when you can.
I mean, we do this all. I mean, even just recently, you know, we launched this music platform called Clockenflap Music, and that's nothing like. There's no part of that naturally was, personally speaking, in terms of something that feels like it's something I can do in terms of hosting like a kind of online radio show. That's completely something that has high potential for complete train wreckness. But we approach it with this thinking of saying, let's just start everything small, try and grow it organically, figure out and go into it with the knowledge that we're going to learn a lot by doing it, and the process of doing it and experimenting. And we're so lucky, you know, to get to do this as our jobs. We get to come in and experiment. Let's try and make a radio show. Amazing. Okay, I'm not the most natural host to do that, but I'm more than happy to give it a go and learn as I'm going and try to figure out what works and what doesn't work, or what might resonate, and that has high potential to be massive kind of pie in the face style stuff. But it's in the bigger picture, it fits so well with our mission of just trying to keep sharing and introducing great music to great people. And so I'm more than happy to do that, despite my uncomfortableness, kind of in as you can tell, behind a microphone.
I'm writing down great music for great people, because that's good. Is that on the wall somewhere in here? Like our vision, our mission. Do you have your mission on the wall? It's a big thing. You got to put the vision and the mission on the wall.
Yeah,
and then make everybody
music for me.
Yeah. Yes, you would start and it would just be all of Andy's favorite bands and the entire population of Hong Kong standing there going,
no one else knows.
No.
Have you? What's your favorite act you've brought out?
Impossible to answer, because
What's some of the ones that you really enjoyed?
Again, because each one has got, there's a backstory to pretty much almost every act that is booked, and why, and there's very, you know, the festival is super interesting because it's all about trying to, well, for me, it's all about trying to create this balance, and kind of like what we talked about earlier about this festival being in and for the people of Hong Kong and this in the city, like right from the beginning, have wanted the programming, the lineup to reflect that in terms of this kind of melding of East meets West, this kind of merging of kind of classic influences, but also really kind of emerging kind of new artists. All these things come to play, and so I really take so much pleasure from all parts of that spectrum, and it's really difficult to figure out. Or
just name a band that you enjoyed that you saw at one of your festivals.
I know the answer to this one. Well, the other thing I should say is I actually don't get to see many bands from at our festival.
Yeah,
This is the thing, is like people will ask me questions. They're like, "Oh my God, you get to do stand-up comedy. That's amazing." And sometimes it is amazing. Sometimes it is like an experience, and sometimes it is just a job. It is Thursday night. I don't want to be here. I'm going to get up on stage and make them laugh for 12 and a half minutes, and I'm not going to enjoy it. And
even though I'm killing, even though having the time,
even though the thing is, like, I'm standing there being like, "Oh my God, it's Thursday," and when you're running something, like, you're there 6 hours before everyone and 12 hours after everybody leaves.
They're there weeks before,
and it's like
festival.
Yeah, I've run a lot of events with my mom, like big fundraisers and stuff, and it's like everyone comes and then they're like saying, "Oh," to my mom, they're like, "Oh, this is amazing! You did such a good job. You should feel proud of yourselves, right?" And then the minute they all leave, my mom just starts chain smoking because she's fucking exhausted from the day.
Yeah.
It's exhausting.
I can't tell you the thing the artists I've loved the most because there's so many, but I can definitely pinpoint the time I liked the least, which was the time that I played at Clockenflap. And that was miserable because the whole time in my head I was just thinking about all the other things I should have been doing at that time, or all the other things going on that I had to. It's impossible to disassociate yourself from the organizer head and just be in the moment of playing. That was miserable. So it doesn't answer your question at all.
What countries have you had acts from, represented from, and are there any countries you're trying to get acts from going forward?
I definitely do not think in geographical terms, but the acts we don't have artists from tend to be ones we cannot get visas for. So
is that an issue? Who can't get visas for Hong Kong?
It's very difficult to get working visas for people from Vietnam, for example, in Hong Kong.
Really?
Yeah, and
Oh yeah, that makes sense. The boat people.
Yeah, it's a performing visa though.
And so we've had artists in the past where we really, really desperately have wanted to present certain artists, and it's just not been possible.
The immigration department here, though, you do get a dialogue with them, which is a little bit different. Yeah, and did you
fine. And
have you gone to bat for any and gotten across the line?
We've not been able to get anything across the line in terms of what is not their standard protocol.
Really?
Whereas what I say is so good about the system is that it is a process that works in terms of we know how long it takes to get a visa. We're certainly able to expedite visas when we need to, and they've been very, very helpful on that front. But in terms
pretty
of
easy to get them for developed countries.
Super easy.
Hong Kong is for performance is ridiculously easy.
Yeah.
You just try mainland China.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's just a totally different process. In fact, Hong Kong's one of the easiest in Asia. I think Singapore is probably the only one that's easier.
Yeah.
Singapore's a lot easier, to be fair.
Singapore, you just show up. If you're an American, you can just show up. But like, Japan is hard. Korea is hard. You got to get like, China's the hardest because you got to have the scripts approved. So you got to have them translated. You got to get, it's getting artists to commit to it. I guess it's different with bands. But with
not different
comedians
for mainland China, it's the same. It goes to the Ministry.
No,
of
but
Culture.
I mean, getting a band to commit to a script, you'd be like, we're going to play these 8 songs. It's a little easier than being like, comedian being like, I'm going to do these 30 jokes.
Yeah, because the number one rule for comedians is we always know everything we're going to say.
Yeah,
before we get on
that's-
stage.
Yeah, but that's why they don't give licenses anymore for
That's
stand-up.
hey, from their perspective, that was a smart choice.
Totally makes sense.
Good for them.
Yeah.
Proud of them.
So I guess you know Archie Hamilton.
I do.
I had him on a podcast years
great.
ago, and his experiences as a promoter were a little different. You know.
He's been on more of a roller coaster than I have. But Archie's great. He's one of the. When I first started doing shows here, those kind of small intimate shows that we talked about at the beginning, he was one of the persons I really connected with because he was doing very similar things in China, and we were both trying. So we ended up kind of creating this circuit at that level of artists and doing a lot of we work together a lot.
Yeah, he's a real pioneer for concerts in Shanghai and in China, and it's one of the big things for him is like he'd be like, this artist got busted at the airport for drugs and didn't show up, and I've got a crowd there screaming for most deaf or whatever, and that to me is that insane world of music promotion. I mean, it's and putting huge amounts of tickets on sale, and when sales don't come in soft.
It is. We always believe that we would never risk more than we can afford to lose, and so
That makes you unique in the world of promoting, I believe.
There's different approaches, but the major difference in mainland China is that especially when Archie was starting out, is the goalpost can just move at any stage and move considerably
from day to day. So what's the biggest act you've brought out? We talked about Mumford & Sons at one point, but
Halsey was supposed to come. I was excited.
Who was that?
Halsey?
Oh, right, yeah.
Halsey was supposed to go.
Yes.
All right.
Who's the biggest actor we've got?
Or a big one.
I mean,
Was there anyone you were like, fuck, I can't believe we got that?
all the time. We punch above our weight. We punch so far above our weight. That
Which is
people
one
in
of the
Hong Kong
things
do
about
not
being a
recognize.
pioneer and being in a place where it's not an established
100%.
market.
So even in the early days, when I was doing those small shows, and maybe this is something that like Neil Thompson will relate to, but we were doing shows in Grappa's Cellar, an Italian pizza restaurant or an Italian restaurant where
I love their carbonara.
arrabbiata all the way.
Yeah.
We had artists like Jose Gonzalez. Or
Oh,
Rat-a-tat,
wow.
Or like a whole raft of artists who had not played a smaller show for years, and I would be there standing like, what an absolute privilege this is to be in this space with them, with just 300 other people, and that's so special. It's so special, and we from that level up even to the festival, where the festival punches so far above its weight in terms of what we can honestly afford in terms of budget, because artists really want to play the festival, because it's really registered and established itself as being a key kind of taste-making event where the artists who play Clockenflap tend to get all the bookings for all the other festivals in Asia and beyond the years afterwards. So in pure terms of how much on the type of artists that we get, they're far bigger than the ticket price and capacity warrants, which is what a lot of people do not understand. They don't.
Oh, I know it.
It's absurd, and it's why when we release our lineup, we trend on Twitter in places like Japan, because they're like, oh my lord, you get all these artists for this price in the middle of the city. That's it. It's insane.
Yeah, the economics of like an established market, like a Coachella or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the amount of risk that they take on putting on the show. I remember, do you know who Andrew Bull is?
Yeah.
So I had him.
He's
I
Hong
did.
Kong royalty.
Right. Okay.
On the
Well, so he lived
promoter
in
side.
Shanghai for a long time, and I had him on the podcast, and he said the last show that he ran was Celine Dion in Hong Kong, and it lost so much money.
Sorry, who?
Andrew Bull ran.
No, the lady?
Celine. No. Yeah. Anyway, and it was just such a thing that the promoters just understand intimately, and I think people just don't get, is like, they saw a packed show of her killing. What they didn't see was the third of the arena that had been curtained off because they didn't sell the tickets. And these guys are standing in the box just losing their ass. And he's like, that was the last show I ever ran. He's like, never ran a show after that. But he also ran like an iconic nightclub here as well.
He did a ton, and I'm sure he's been on the roller coasters of those ups and downs.
But that's what promoting is. How are you navigating this business differently to everybody else?
Because we're
that's
super risk averse when it comes down to it. Actually, like we're.
But do you find it hard to compete? Because there's other people doing festivals now, you know.
No, because
This is when Andy plugs his music festival that he's decided to
I'm
launch.
not touching that shit. Oh my god, I don't have the stomach for it, dude. Music festivals, it's like if you have a huge corporation, but all of your revenues are, planned come out of 1 week of the year. You make or break your year.
Yes.
In a week.
Totally, and the thing is, we welcome it, because that's the thing. Like I was talking about earlier, where we didn't have this culture of festivals. In the early days, and actually still to a degree, we go out and market what a festival is. We're not yet at the level where we can market what is the difference between Clockenflap and all these other festivals.
Which is a gift.
Well, it's a gift in some respects, but I actually think we will be in a better position when we can market what is the difference between Clockenflap and all these other festivals happening. I think all those other festivals, I think more festivals happening, more people creating a bigger pie helps us.
Yeah.
I think it gives us a point of differentiation. I think it gives a context, and I think so.
Yeah, but the reality is
it's super hard and it's super difficult.
Also, really what you face is that those other promoters are not grassroots promoters. And they're bringing in relationships that will block you out of business.
This is more about Andy's bringing up some drama from the past here.
No. This is the fucking global business of... Dude, AEG, Live Nation, they are if you don't go with them, they can be brutal against. This is not the business that I work in, but the music side of that business is fierce, and they leverage their size to crush grassroots promoters.
It can be.
That's how it works.
But one of the opportunities that's come, and this is especially this convergence of different factors that have converged at the same time, is that in Asia there are a few spots, and there are very few spots of like this in the world. There's New York is one of these, and where you have places where actually the independent promoters have enough leverage and enough clout that the agents and the artists and managers understand that there's the importance of letting those scenes burgeon, even if not flourish, at least.
Sure, and there are lots of stories of them backing them. You know, the collaboration works out.
So
really well.
I'm the fact is on up from the grassroots to the mid scale, we still are. We're in an okay position.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that we haven't really touched on that I think is probably answers why you have more stability than others is you guys have a great ticketing business.
Oh, really? What's your ticketing business called? Subtle transition, seamless.
Well, our ticketing business has just been renamed Total Ticketing Solutions.
Total Ticketing Solutions.
and
Wait, Ticketflap's gone?
Well, no, Ticketflap is there. Ticketflap is still there, but Ticketflap is one of the brands within Total Ticketing.
Oh.
And
Oh, they've ticketed up.
we've up-ticketed.
It's like a tongue twister. We've up-ticketed the ticketing of Total Ticketing transitions.
But it's right. You know,
That's their new advertising campaign, is just people trying to say the name of the company.
Name, you can work for
We've
us.
tickled tickety ticketing tick tick tickles. Tickle McTick tick.
Come tickles with the ticketing.
but true, and from the early days of Mike, one of our co-founders, he ran his own tech company before he was doing this. So really, that side of things has been ingrained in our DNA right from the beginning. And we started the ticketing company, or the ticketing side to the company, because there weren't the modern day solutions that we felt Hong Kong needed.
I agree on so many levels.
And so we built it. And it's the same ethos with the festival. There wasn't a festival that we thought should exist, so we built it. And the ticketing side has really taken a life of its own. And that's the amazing thing. And that now is going into being able to provide these kind of white label, or what we call ETS solutions, where we can power other people's ticketing. Effectively, everything we do, we've had to build it ourselves because we need it, and then the idea is to offer that out to other people so they can make use of it too. And the ticketing is exactly the same. And so in the same way, ticketing has now become something where we power various other people's branded ticketing shop fronts all across the city, but all across the region, and that's only going to grow. And that's the next step of that is then to integrate the kind of live streaming part, and the kind of. I think we've been well placed in that we haven't had so much of a legacy. Decades of being classic promoters. We've approached this from saying, what can we do here and now, and be super open-minded about how we move forward with that, and understand that actually with this group of people under this roof, we can kind of do all sorts of things. And if it makes sense to try it, let's try it.
Do you feel...
I'm just looking around. They had Sigaros. The Icelandic, I'm probably not saying it right, but they're this wonderful hypnotic Icelandic band. And when I was in high school, my dear friend Brian Fanning got very into them. And I remember after I listened to the music, I went back to him, and we were such nerds. I was just like, "Are you smoking weed too?" And he was like, and he literally said to me, "No, wait, what?" And I was like, "'Cause that's what you smoke. That's what you listen to when you smoke weed." I didn't know. We were 15. No one slept with us. Okay. I'm just looking. They've had so many people here.
You just look at, so Seth's just looking at the post. He's realised the posters on the walls of
Yes.
people they've brought out. Has COVID been the hardest thing you guys have had to deal with?
Actually, no, I wouldn't say so. I'd say the early
What was
days
what was harder than COVID?
in the beginning, doing what we did was as close to being impossible without literally being impossible. It was so difficult to try and create something like Clockenflap because there was no process. There was no pathway for us to do it. So we had to we had to basically pioneer and furrow this way forward where there wasn't a path, and so those days were very difficult, and just not having the consistency or the availability of venues is a massive challenge in Hong Kong.
Oh, it's crazy. The shortage of venues here is insane.
I just did a unit with my kids in school on Cantopop, and we kept watching all these songs, and one of the kids said, "Are all those songs in the same place?" And they are. They're all in Hung Hom Stadium, which is this big stadium where every Cantopop star does their big concert and then their 20-year return to the big stage. So we saw Hacken Lee and Andy Lau, and that's it. And we were watching the videos, and part of the assignment usually with the kids is I make them go look up Cantopop performances, and they came back to me and they were like, "It's the only place that does music." I was like, "I'm sure there's other places, but yeah, there's no room here for a big thing except capitalism. That's the only one."
Now, that just reminded me that last year there was 2 weeks in this city where the protests went from being a thing that we felt safe around to just being an absolute nightmare popping up everywhere.
At the university standoff.
Exactly. That's when Clockenflap was supposed to be. And I remember it because I was so excited about going. That's such a stressful thing to go. And that's what I'm talking about, this music promotion stuff. Is like you've got all your year built into this thing that's coming up. And how hard was it to make that decision not to go ahead?
Is it like giving birth every year? It's like you build it for a year.
No, because you can love the festival unconditionally.
Oh, no. Yeah, that's fair. That's totally fair. You're not standing there going, "This was a mistake. This was a mistake."
No, well, that one's ugly.
Again, more stuff from Andy's past.
No, yeah, it was super tough. Our take on it, or our policy was we were going to push forward for as long as we were able to push forward and hope that we could realize this event, because we thought more than ever
the city needed it, right?
The city needed it. And we could really do with people coming together. And actually music, it really is one of the most universal art forms. It really would have brought people together for a moment that we could have all done with. But ultimately, the decision was taken out of our hands. So, it got to a point where it just wasn't tenable. And so, we were told it's not tenable. And so once that happens,
did the decision get made for you?
Yeah.
I mean, not just literally, did someone say yeah, this is up? Yeah, okay.
Yes. And we had a lot of support up until that point, and I think everyone wanted it to happen.
I was very.
It was actually Carrie Lamb. He got a personal phone call from Carrie Lamb. She was very polite. She was excited for Halsey.
She was sitting on a pile of money.
Sitting on a pile of money.
Cash. And yeah, that's and it sucks that COVID and protests. That's 2 years in a row. That's
2 years in a row. So we're very much looking forward to. We've got a lot of pent up desire to, and I think the city does, and I think having a real moment where we can kind of all explode kind of collectively in joy and inspiration is much needed.
What do you hope to see at that next festival?
Well, all we keep hearing is this kind of pent up demand, and that people want, and we've seen it every time things, restrictions relax a bit, that people are hungry.
Mate, we were sold out when we were running. We were just selling out. We sold out 8 weeks in a row.
Yes.
So it was a great time.
Yeah, amazing. And I want people not to take those opportunities for granted. It gets to a stage where, from where I come from, we talked in the beginning about the early days, we didn't have these opportunities. And since then, we've had a generation of kids who've grown up with something like Clockenflap that didn't exist before. And it gets to a stage where people actually don't necessarily appreciate what their opportunities are, because these things are, what this year has shown us is that things can change instantly. And events like Clockenflap, like the comedies, like all these things, they give real opportunity to elicit lifetime memories and really have these moments that can't be replicated, and they're only experienced when you're there yourself in these moments. And so I'm really hoping that next year we make the most of them in whatever shape they may come, whatever event that might be, or whatever connection that might be. People people take those chances to connect and be together and enjoy some collective inspiration. That's what I'm hoping.
No, that's great. Personal question. If just you, purely for you, planned out the docket on Clockenflap, who would be on your personal Clockenflap?
I was just going to ask that same question.
No, you weren't, you liar. You liar.
Similar.
But if you were just like based on your playlists of your...
Well, I was going to say, who do you want to see on there that you haven't gotten yet?
Yeah. Dream big.
Well, the thing is, I'm not.
Here we go.
Here we go. You know what I'm going to say.
So Mumford and Sons. Mumford and Sons.
But the bigness of the artist is of no consequence to me. So if you told me to dream of everything, I would probably choose this. I would choose a lineup that wouldn't correlate to ticket sales, because
sure,
the
but
whole
that's
thing
the
about
question.
being a promoter.
That's the question.
Yeah, who's on that lineup? Just for you. Just for you.
Well, I'll tell you. So last year, 2 acts that didn't play that would have been the best thing that never got to happen in Hong Kong was the Idols and King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard shows. Those. What excites me as a promoter, and when I talked about not being able to watch many shows at the festival itself, is the moments I get at the festival, I watch the crowd, and being able to program stuff that 100% is going to blow people's minds. It's super rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
So those acts would be on the bill.
Can you say that? Did you stutter, or was it 3 izzard rhyming words?
King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. You should
King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard.
King Gizzard and the Lizard
They're from
Wizard.
Melbourne.
Oh yeah, there you go. Melbourne's got a great live music scene. Justin, thank you so much for coming on today.
My
It's
pleasure.
been awesome. It was fascinating to hear about the development of it, and I got to tell you, I cannot wait for 2021 Clockenflap.
It's going to be the bomb.